Hey, Cursed here. We're looking at a SCR Ishai deck here, a flying tribal by Capybara Vishing. So this is a new casual deck for their FNM at their LGS. Deck seems to work really well, but the one thing I can't playtest in a fishbowl is Ishai's ability. I sure could keep the big bird alive for a few rounds, and I'm running stockpiles of counterspells to keep my opponents from playing Rasp, but is this enough? My main concern is Ishai will be too small to close out games within a reasonable time frame. I'm not looking for something lightning speed, but a control shell with an absurd amount of card draw, your typical Azorius shenanigans with copies, tokens, whatnot. All right, so let's take a look at the deck. So quickly, just to know, this is a partner commander setup. So SCR will give your commanders pseudo ward 3, not exactly because it doesn't stop abilities, but it stops spells from hitting them for 3 or more. And Ishai is kind of like Mana Gorger Hydra, where it grows when people cast spells. However, this doesn't count your own spells, it only counts your opponent's spells. So Ishai is Mana Gorger Hydra with flying instead of trample, but worse in the command zone. So making Ishai work is really kind of tricky. Looking at the rest of the deck, there's a lot of power here. There's a lot of generically strong flying creatures that I really like, and the support is really, really good. Looking around, artifacts are good, lands are good, we got some nice enchantments. The first thing I really like about this deck is it is really focused. It's clear what it wants to do, and it has the setup to do it. So let's poke at its weak points. One weak point that I want to point out that is kind of difficult to gauge is that this is an FNM deck. This is casual deck. I don't know what your FNM is like, but this is a little past what I would consider casual. This would be like advanced casual, right? We have a lot of counter spells. We have tutors, though notably this tutor can only really grab counter spells with it and protection spells and a few removal spells. It doesn't hit anything that I think is just game winning. Seagate Restoration and Vanquish the Horde, I think, would be the strongest things to grab. Physical tutor grabs sorceries too. Yeah. So I think those would be the strongest things to cast, to tutor for to cast, but otherwise it feels a little out of place. So my first suggestion is that perhaps this is tuned a little stronger than an FNM or a casual EDH deck would be. But let's put that to the side because I think that's going to be up for the deck creator to decide. So let's talk about Ishai. The problem here is that Ishai does something you don't particularly need. The main goal of this deck is to go wide and take advantage of flying synergy in order to attack with a bunch of little creatures. We've got, I assume, an enchantment. Am I wrong? Isn't there an enchantment for 2 mana that boosts flying? Am I wrong? Flying, yes. Let's go sort by mana value. Go down to 2. Maybe you should have been more specific. It's favored wins, right? Am I incorrect? Right, American spelling and still not correct. Okay, one more check, because I feel like this is a real card. Enchantment, flying, 2 mana. Favorable wins. Okay, I'm very confused that this is not in the deck. It feels like exactly what you would like. Do you have a maybe board? Considering. Yeah, okay, it's in the considering section. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Um, Considering this is supposed to be a casual deck, this is exactly what I feel like you need. Ball. Okay. So, looking at this, the main goal is to go wide and use creatures that give +1/+1 across the board, such as uh, Empyrean Eagle or Favored Winds if you put it in, to boost your team so they can actually do respectable damage. Ishai, on the other hand, is meant to go tall. Ishai gets stronger as your opponents cast spells at a really slow rate. So one turn cycle where people are playing a little conservatively because Ishai is on the battlefield means that Ishai turns back to you, gets 3 +1/+1 counters, is a 4/4 flyer. I don't know if that's really strong enough. You can't upgrade it yourself by casting spells. And Essior, though helpful, doesn't really change the fact that Ishai is weak to board clears, and this deck as a whole is weak to board clears. So, okay, so what I'm going to say is this. I think Ishai powers down the deck to a level that could be considered casual if you're sitting there and your main goal is to play Ishai and win with it. If you're trying to play the control game plan, you're definitely playing at a higher level than what I would consider casual. And you're probably, this is the kind of deck that, for the most part, avoiding the fact that you'd probably be able to slowly amass lethal with your creatures, this is the kind of commander deck that the commander players online love to dig at. They think this is a control deck that has really strong control, which it does, but it has no quick way to win the game. So what I would do to fix this, if you're if you're set on keeping a shy, I think a direction I would go is to put more equipment into play. A direction you have here is you have a lot of evasive threats. You have a lot of evasive threats that can hold swords really, really well. And that will be very good at speeding up your game plan. They'll also survive board clears very well. And I think it will, depending on what you take out, it will make your deck a little more casual leveled or a little stronger. You just need to figure out what you're taking out, right? Something like Ogrial, if you take out Ogrial, the deck will get stronger if you replace it with Sword of Fire and Ice, for example, or Sword of Feast and Famine. If you take out, on the other hand, Ledger Shredder, your deck will probably decrease in power a little bit, or I guess maybe a better direction would be like taking out Selfless Spirit. That would make the deck weaker, and it would give you room for the sword. So I'm gonna not give you direct ideas of what you should cut because I think that's gonna depend on how strong you want to make the deck. But I'm gonna suggest equipment. Now, the Swords of cards, that cycle, is the one that is the strongest to easily put in here. So if you're looking for something else, I think I would look for equipment that just adds power or toughness in a reasonable way. I'm thinking of, let's see, equipment for each creature. I know there are some. I'm trying to remember what they are. Um, Horn of Valhalla is really good here because it both creates tokens. Now, they're not flyers, so it's not ideal, but it does have the adventure. But the fact that it gives +1/+1 for each creature you control and you're going wide works really well. Canvas Banner does the same thing. Lion's Sash. I saw you had Rest in Peace on the side. Lion's Sash can work as like a more precise Rest in Peace, so it is something there. Pen and Blade is obviously a much more expensive version of the same ability as above. Abilities like this, I think, would be appropriate for a casual F&M setting where, yeah, opponents aren't going to have a lot of fun if you peck them to death. But if you get one really big guy, like if you take Ishai, sorry, and attach Blackblade Reforge and swing in for like 12, I don't think people are going to be too mad. That's pretty cool. You're presenting a pretty fast clock. It has Ward 3, well, pseudo Ward 3 from your partner legendary. And I didn't even think of this, but having equipment actually makes Essior a playable creature, especially something like Black Plague Reforge that it can attach equipped to 3 on Essior. And all of a sudden, it's not the worst creature you've ever played. A 1/3 with pseudo Ward 3 gets considerably better if you equip something powerful to it. Otherwise, I think the deck is, yeah, I think the deck is very straightforward. I think you know exactly what you are making here. And I don't disagree with this. This is kind of the deck I would bring to my FNM. But my FNM has a what I would consider a higher level of power generally. Like I would still probably take out Mystical Tutor. I would probably take Offer out. I would probably take out. You don't have Silence, so it's not that high power. But I would take a few of those out because they're probably much more likely to be blanked because the power level is lower. So you just need to gauge that for yourself. Um, Once again, Duelist Heritage makes a lot more sense when Ishai is like reasonably. When Ishai can get big reasonably, Double Strike is going to be real good. So once again, I'm looking at this. I'm looking at equipment as a bit of a side strategy. Maybe 3, 4 extra cards. You can take out some of the one mana counters depending on power. Or once again, if you want to keep the same power, you take something out like Soul Catcher. You take something out like Sage Owl. You take something out like Augury Owl. I've said this a few times in the deck assists I've made so far, but there is this habit in commander players where that if their strategy with their creatures is not the strongest, like flying tribal, I would say is a strong strategy, but not top tier. There's this there's this need to kind of strengthen the deck by using really good um, non-creature cards. I'm almost surprised that you don't have Rhystic Study because I find that that's often a direction that commander players will go in when they feel like for example you have rule of law here. It really makes me wonder who's at your FNM that you consider casual that rule of law is really effective against. When I think casual, I think tribal decks. I think decks where my opponents tap out each turn to play a creature. And rule of law really doesn't fit that. But with all that in mind, I think you have deafening silence too. But I think you have a really good base to go in a number of different directions. I think Ishai is going to be a little disappointing to you. I think you might be better off with a white commander to partner with this, with Essior to have the same colors, or to switch up your colors. I think the deck itself is strong, and the commanders are kind of the outlier that holds it back. I hope this was helpful. This was Cursed, and I hope this deck goes in the direction you want.